Hello everyone and welcome back to another modelled writing video. So today we are going to look at two task 2 questions. So these are the longer essay style questions and you'll have 40 minutes to complete these question in the arts exam, and you're looking to write a minimum of 250 words. So we'll be looking at two examples of those today. As always, we will be thinking of a plan, talking about how we'd structure them, and then we'll do the write-up and you can follow along at home and see how we would approach this kind of question. Okay, well, with that being said, let's get started on the first task of the day. And this is going to look at a second language. So this topic is, yes, you might have a lot of examples for this one. Might be quite familiar, which is good. Okay, the question. Many people believe that it is important for children to learn a second language at a young age. Do you agree or disagree with this view? What are the benefits and drawbacks of learning a second language? Okay, so we've got an interesting question here. We've got a two-part question. Do you agree or disagree with this view? And what are the benefits and drawbacks of learning a second language in childhood? So this is a type of question which it might be a bit daunting because we're not sure how to approach it. Essentially, we are being asked for our opinion, and then we're being asked for the advantages and the disadvantages. So how I would structure this one is I would weave in my opinion into the main body paragraphs, and I would then talk about the advantages and disadvantages, leaving the side that I agree with second, so the second main body. I'll show you how I'll structure it in the plan, so maybe that will make a bit more sense to you, but if this is confusing, I'll break it down here. So what we're going to do is we're going to think, okay, many people believe it is important for children to learn a second language at a young age. I agree. For this essay, I'm going to agree with this view. So I'm going to put agree when I'm talking about the benefits. I'm going to weave it into that paragraph there. So for the first paragraph, I'm going to talk about the drawbacks here. Okay, so we're answering both questions, but we're just structuring it in perhaps a slightly different way. Right, so let's think about some drawbacks of learning a second language at a young age. Okay, so nowadays technology is very prevalent. You may not need to learn a second language. It's not as essential because you can use apps, you can use translators, things like this. So means it is less essential. So if it's less essential, then children can, well, the drawbacks are if you do learn a second language, then it's time used that could be spent on other things. So technology means it is less essential to learn. Takes up time that could be used for other skills, maybe core skills. If they're young children, young age, maybe children should be focusing on other things, not learning a language. And also maybe a disadvantage of learning a second language. Well, if your first language is English, then in today's world, English is very widely spoken, and perhaps it is just not necessary to learn another language. So if you speak English, another language is less essential. Okay, those are some disadvantages. Now let's go into the benefits, which we are going to agree with and talk about why young children should learn a second language. So points that come to my head, it expands your outlook, cultural awareness, maybe sparks a passion, skill for life as well. You are more likely to, if you learn one language, you're more likely to learn another language. Skill for life, travel options when you're older, and this opens the door for that. Also, there's research that it can stave off dementia as well, and diseases like that. So stave off diseases. Okay, so we've got lots of points there. In our conclusion, then, we want to basically just remind ourselves of the argument that we're going to weave throughout here. So we want to say agree that it is important for children to learn another language. Okay, so we've got many points here, quite a big, quite a lot of notes, but that's okay. You'll have this in the exam, so you can refer back to this throughout this essay. All right, so I think we can go to the write-up now, and we want to, first of all, paraphrase this sentence here, put it into our own words. Many people believe that it is important for children to learn a second language at a young age. Okay, let's start. That it is argued that it is vital for the younger generation to learn, to be educated in another language other than their mother tongue as early as possible. Let's have a think about this one. It is argued that it is vital for the younger generation to be educated in another language other than their mother tongue as early as possible. Okay, let's state what I'm going to do in this essay. In this essay, I will argue, or we've used argue, I will agree that this is in fact essential and proceed to, actually, let's switch this around. So I'll proceed to demonstrate the advantages and, well, actually, we're going to start with the disadvantages. The disadvantages and advantages of such a situation, and I will agree that it is in fact an important part, an important skill to learn. Let's read this back. It's a bit longer, but that's okay. Every introduction will be a different length, depending on the question. It is argued that it is vital for the younger generation to be educated in another language other than their mother tongue as early as possible. In this essay, I will proceed to demonstrate the disadvantages and advantages of such a situation, and I will agree that it is in fact an important skill to learn. Okay, so that is how we're going to set up this answer, and we're going to get started on our drawbacks, our disadvantages. So there is a viewpoint that becoming, that's being fluent or being skillful in more than one language. There is a viewpoint that being skillful in more than one language is let's change this around. Actually, there is a viewpoint that learning more than one language as a child brings some setbacks or brings with it some setbacks. There is a viewpoint that learning more than one language as a child brings with it some setbacks. Okay, so we're displaying this side of the argument first. Let's think about the fact that we live in the age of technology, so children growing up don't have to learn a second language. We can rely on technology. Therefore, this time can be spent in other, more essential parts of life, some would say. So the primary reason is due to living in the technology age where translators and apps are available on our smartphones. It is futile for the up and coming generation to put time into another language. The primary reason is due to living in the technology age where translators and apps are available on our smartphones. It is futile for the up and coming generation to put time into another language. Therefore, time spent on, say, let's just tie this up. Therefore, time spent on French, for example, could be focused on more essential subjects for children, such as mathematics, for example. More essential core subjects. These are the topics that we can say, that are needed to set children up for their future. That are needed to set children up for their future in education, not languages. Okay, so there is a viewpoint that learning more than one language as a child brings with it some setbacks. The primary reason is due to living in the technology age where translators and apps are available on our smartphones. It is futile for the up and coming generation to put time into another language. Therefore, efforts maybe. We're trying not to repeat ourselves. Effort in French, for example, could be focused on more essential core subjects for children. For kids, maybe for kids, such as mathematics. These are the topics that are needed to set the youth up for their future in education, not languages. Okay, so that is our main reason. I think we can leave it there actually. We want to, of course, put in more explanation and examples into our own opinion that we are arguing here. So we'll leave it at that for now. Maybe we'll come back and add to it, but I think that's good here. So let's just address this. So whilst more time for critical subjects is important, or maybe useful, it is clear that allowing young students to develop language skills is of the utmost importance. It's of the utmost importance. Most the T there. Okay, so we're addressing the this argument, the downsides, and we want to talk about the advantages. So and brings and has many advantages. Okay, so the main advantage, what are we going to talk about, is the cultural awareness. The main benefit is, or maybe we can switch this around. Young minds expanding their knowledge, cultural awareness, and outlook on life is the main benefit. So we could talk about learning a language also helps to learn customs and maybe look at the world in a slightly more, in a wider sense. It also makes students think about their own language in a different way. So not only does a second language improve an individual's first language, in terms of understanding the grammar, maybe. It also opens a child's mind to other cultural practices. Or maybe to another way of life. It also, let's have a think. Not only does the second language improve an individual's first language in terms of understanding, it also opens the door to another way of life different customs, maybe. Another way of life, and um, and different customs that one that comes with learning, or comes with being educated in a second, um, in we've said more than one language, second language. Maybe being aware of. Let's expand. We can maybe use an example just to explain our point a little bit more. Not only does the second language improve an individual's first language in terms of understanding, comma. Maybe this is confusing actually. So, we could say it opens the door to another way of life and allows a person to become aware of different customs that comes with being educated in languages. Let's say that, for example, different languages have different ways of approaching people. There's politeness rules in some languages. For instance, some languages I know that depending who you're talking to in Vietnamese, for example, you have to change your approach. Some languages, such as Vietnamese, have politeness, customs when addressing different aged people, and this expands one's knowledge of the culture. So it opens children's minds, children's cultural awareness. It allows them to look at things in a slightly different way. We could maybe mention another point here just to expand this as well. Additionally, this could spark a passion, maybe spark a passion that could lead to a future career. In many different forms in today's globally connected world. Being able to communicate is a priority with employers. Be internationally. Okay, so then we've got this other extra point as well. I think that's good. Let's go back and read and see how we feel. Whilst more time for critical subjects is useful, it is clear that allowing young students to develop language skills is of the utmost importance and has many advantages. Maybe, and therefore has many. Or maybe, and subsequently has many advantages. Young minds expanding their knowledge, cultural awareness, and outlook on life is the main benefit. It opens the door to another way of life, maybe, to another, maybe to a different perspective, and allows a person to become aware of different customs that comes with being educated in that mother tongue. We've used mother tongue. That's a way of communicating. For instance, some languages such as Vietnamese have politeness customs when addressing different age people, and this expands one's knowledge of the culture. Additionally, this could spark a passion that could, we've repeated ourselves a bit there, that might lead to a future career in many different forms. We could add a line here. For example, marketing. In today's globally connected world, being able to communicate internationally is a priority with employers. Okay, so we've got our two sides there, and our opinion is interweaved into this second paragraph here. So let's tie this all together. Maybe we could do in summary, overall, there. Maybe we could say although, time spent on language learning could be utilized in more education, more critical ways. There is no denying the clear positives to having languages in a child's skill set. As expanding knowledge and as expanding knowledge is always beneficial. Let's read this back. Overall, although time spent on language learning could be utilised in more critical ways, there is no denying the clear positives to having languages in a child's skill set, as expanding knowledge is always beneficial. So we're just tying everything up there, rounding it all up. And I think that's good. We've got both sides, introduction and conclusion. Let's count the words. So this comes to 312 words, so a little bit over the 250 minimum there, but that's okay. You can, if you've been following along at home, you can adapt this to how you would answer this question. And maybe you have different examples. Maybe you could take away a few points if you wanted to make this a bit smaller, but I think that's good. That's the structure is a good one to follow, and you can see how we've started with the topic sentences, expanded our points, included examples. I think that's good. Okay, well, with that being said then, let's go to our next topic. And we're going to look at the countryside or big city. Some people think that it is better to live in the countryside, while others prefer to live in a big city. What are the advantages and disadvantages of each of these options? Okay, so an interesting question, this one. It's quite common to see advantages and disadvantages of one option But to have two options and to do the advantages and disadvantages of each, that's quite interesting. So there might be there are different ways of approaching this kind of question, and I'll talk you through one today. See what you think, see how it feels to you. But I will show you how I'm going to structure this in the plan. Okay, so we've got two options. First option we've got is the countryside. So let's note this down, countryside. And then the second option is the big city. Now, we want to talk about, and interestingly, it's not our opinion, we just want to display the advantages and disadvantages of both. So, countryside, let's start with the advantages, and we're going to include both in each paragraph. So, I'll show you how to do that. Advantages, it's very peaceful, less pollution. There's more of a sense of community. Okay, so we're just thinking about a few for each. And then disadvantages. There's less activities. Maybe limited careers. And perhaps small-minded people. Small-minded people. Okay. So you can see how we've got the advantages and disadvantages for each of these options now. Well, we've just done countryside. Let's do big city. So advantage of the big city, well, in fact, many opportunities, diversity, and the transport links are very, very good. So we could say, or very convenient. Okay, disadvantages of a big city is very expensive. The countryside can be expensive, but on the whole, the city is more expensive. Much more pollution, and there's often traffic problems. Okay then, so here we have our advantages and disadvantages of each of these options. So this is how we're going to lay this out today. Maybe we don't want to repeat ourselves. Maybe we'll think of another option for pollution. We'll see how we go. We don't want to fall into the trap of repeating ourselves and using the opposite points. If we can be diverse, that would be good here. Okay, so in conclusion, we're not doing our opinion. So there are advantages and disadvantages to both living in the countryside and the big city here. Okay then, so with that being said, let's go to the write-up and we'll put this all together now. We need to paraphrase to start off with. Some people think that it is better to live in the countryside, while others prefer to live in a big city. Okay, so we can start by saying maybe on one hand, there are groups in society who believe that living in a remote village is preferred, whilst different individuals argue or while different individuals choose to reside in a large city. City is hard to paraphrase. On one hand, there are groups in society, that might be a nice comma there. On one hand, there are groups in society who believe that living in a remote village is preferred, whilst different individuals choose to reside in a large city. let's talk about what we're going to do. This essay will examine both the benefits and drawbacks of each situation. There we go. We're not arguing anything. We're just going to state the benefits and drawbacks. Okay, so that is our introduction. So now let's start with the countryside. So living in the countryside provides both living in the countryside offers both positive and negative aspects. Nice just topic sentence to open it up here. Okay, so we're going to start with the advantages. Maybe we could say the biggest advantage is the peace and tranquility that is expansive outside of the that is expansive, or maybe that is more expansive in a smaller town. The closer to nature one is, it is scientifically proven the happier that person will be. So the more we are connected with nature, the happier we are. The closer to nature one is, it is scientifically proven the happier that person will be. Let's do a nice period there, actually, full stop. Closer to nature one is, it is scientifically proven the happier that person maybe is. It is scientifically proven that they will be happier. Okay, so that is the biggest advantage. The nature, tranquility, the peace. Let's save the pollution for later, and let's talk about the sense of community as well. Additionally, there is a closer or a more tight-knit community, usually, which in the country, maybe usually in the countryside, which provides stability and security. Okay, so those are our advantages. Now we can go into our negative aspects here. So, however, what comes with the plus sides, or maybe we can say where there are plus sides, there are, of course, downsides. The most striking one being the lack of maybe opportunities, lack of diverse career opportunities. However, where there are plus sides, there are of course downsides, the most striking one being the lack of diverse career opportunities. So management Or maybe we could say higher education, careers in management, or options to change one's line of work. For example, are all more possible, are all quite fairly difficult in a village as it is restricted. Village where opportunities are restricted. Let's just add a line about maybe maybe perhaps there are more small-minded people as well. Moreover, the natural mindset in these places might be veering or verging, might be verging on small-minded, which is where it is difficult to maybe break the norm. Okay, let's read this back and see how it sounds. Living in the countryside offers both positive and negative aspects. The biggest advantage is the peace and tranquility that is more expansive in a smaller town. That is more prevalent, let's say. That's a bit of a better word, prevalent, in a smaller town. The closer to nature one is, it is scientifically proven that they will be happier. Additionally, there is a more tight-knit community usually in the countryside, which provides stability and security. However, where there are plus sides, there are, of course, downsides, the most striking one being the lack of diverse career opportunities. Higher education, careers in management, or options to change one's line of work, for example, are all fairly difficult in a village where opportunities are restricted. Moreover, the natural mindset in these places might be verging on small-minded, where it is difficult to break the norm. Okay, so we've outlined both advantages and disadvantages there for the countryside. Now we can move on to the big city. Okay, so let's start with a nice topic sentence. Let's say life in a sprawling metropolis. Good word for a good phrase for instead of city. Life in a sprawling metropolis. We can compare it to life in the countryside, just like remote life, just like remote living, both attracts and maybe dissuades individuals for different reasons. Okay, so let's start with why people are attracted to the big city. Cities such as New York or London are bustling with life, activities, bustling with activities, opportunities, activities and opportunities. Someone or anything a person wants to do can be found here. So we could do a nice example just to add to this a little bit more. So if a person wants to pursue, if someone wants to start a hobby such as a, I don't know, martial arts, there will be many diverse groups that in a place as large as London. Okay, so hobbies can be done here. Also convenience. So we can do a nice linking word. Additionally, transport links in these places are incredibly convenient, meaning traveling is much more accessible. Okay, let's talk about some disadvantages now. Maybe money and pollution. On the other hand, daily expenses tend to be higher. There is a hidden city cost to that's how I think. Well, I know that everything's maybe meal deals, for example. They're a bit more expensive in the city. And pollution. Moreover, various where there are millions of residents, different pollutants or various pollutants are naturally higher, such as air pollution. Which leads to increased air pollution. Okay, let's read this back and see how we're doing. Life in a sprawling metropolis, just like remote living, both attracts and dissuades individuals for different reasons. Cities such as New York or London, we don't need two examples, there we go, are bustling with activities and opportunities. Anything, bustling with activities, anything a person wants to do can be found here. Let's do the main draw. To cities such as New York is because they are bustling with activities. Anything a person wants to do can be found here. If someone wants to start a hobby, such as a martial art, there will be many diverse groups in a place as large as London. Let's condense this a little bit. Martial arts, we could say there will be many diverse martial arts groups in a city like London, for instance. Additionally, transport links in these places are incredibly convenient, meaning travelling is much more accessible. On the other hand, daily expenses tend to be higher. There is a hidden city cost to meal deals, for example. Moreover, where there are millions of residents, various pollutants are naturally higher, which leads to increased air pollution. All righty, I think that's good. We've got both sides there, advantages and disadvantages for both. Oh, in conclusion. So, in conclusion, there are both advantages and disadvantages to concrete versus a green life. Opportunities and pollution. Opportunities and pollution are varied across the two types of living. In conclusion, there are both advantages and disadvantages to a concrete versus a green life. Opportunities and pollution are varied across the two types of living. Okay, I think that's good. We've just pulled a few examples from the essay and put that in the conclusion. Let's count the words for this one. Okay, so this comes to a grand total of 307 words. So just over the 300 mark there. And I hope that's been helpful today. We've had a slightly unusual question, a question which could throw some students. It can be quite intimidating. And this is how I would approach this type of question. So we've got each of our options, and then we've talked both about the advantages and disadvantages there. So hopefully you've been following along at home, and this looks like a good structure to you. But we've had 2 questions today, so thank you so much for coming along. I hope that's been helpful, and do let us know if you've got any questions or comments. We love to hear from you, and we'll see you in the next one.